Welcome to my channel, everyone. If this story touched something in you, about boundaries, healing, or finally choosing yourself, please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. I share real, honest stories like this every week. Your support means the world and helps me keep telling them. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one. I still remember the exact Tuesday in March when I signed the papers for the house. The notary's office smelled faintly of old coffee and lemon polish. The notary's pen felt heavier than it should have, as if it carried the weight of every doubt I had pushed through to get here. My hand trembled just slightly as I wrote my name, the ink flowing across the page like a quiet declaration. By that Friday evening, I was standing inside it completely alone, holding a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Steam had risen and disappeared hours ago, but I kept cradling the mug like an anchor in the unfamiliar quiet. It wasn't the dreamy beach house people picture in their minds. No wide wraparound porch with white rocking chairs swaying in the breeze. No pristine white shingles glowing under perfect golden sunlight. It was modest, a little weathered by years of salt air and relentless storms, with windows facing west that welcomed the golden light of evening in long, slow, almost hesitant waves. The floors creaked in familiar places under my bare feet, and the walls carried the faint, comforting scent of old wood, distant sea, and years of someone else's memories slowly making room for mine. It had taken me 4 long, exhausting months of searching to find it. Countless weekends spent driving up and down the coast, radio playing softly as I chased leads, scrolling through endless online listings late into the night until my eyes burned. I compared prices, repair estimates, flood zones, and the quiet promise each property seemed to whisper. Some houses felt too big, others too exposed, but this one, tucked modestly behind a small dune, felt like it had been waiting. Another 6 weeks of quiet doubt followed before I finally allowed myself to believe I deserved it. The voice in my head was relentless, whispering that this was too much, too selfish, too sudden for someone like me. The previous October, I had quit my job. There was nothing dramatic about it. No big confrontation, no tears in the office hallway. I emailed the resignation letter on a Monday, cleared my desk by Wednesday, and then spent the next 3 months simply being still. I slept late some days, letting sunlight stretch across the bed without guilt. I walked aimlessly through parks on others, sat on worn benches watching the world rush by in its endless hurry. Friends and family kept asking what I was going to do next, their voices laced with concern, subtle judgment, or sometimes pity. I never had an answer that felt right or complete, so eventually I stopped trying to explain. Their questions became background noise I learned to tune out, like distant traffic on a quiet road. This house became my answer. Not some grand destination or dramatic escape, but a decision made in 3 dimensions, something solid and real I could walk through, touch, smell, and finally call my own. The first night, I didn't even unpack the few boxes I'd brought. I sat on the bare wooden floor with my back against the couch that still hadn't arrived, knees drawn up, listening to the ocean I couldn't quite see from that angle. The sound drifted through the open window like a lullaby I'd waited my whole life to hear. Gentle, persistent, eternal. It was the first evening in longer than I could remember where nothing was demanded of me. No performances for colleagues or family, no managing of other people's moods or expectations, no pretending to be okay when I wasn't. Just the steady rhythm of water doing what water does. Rising, falling, whispering secrets to the shore, without anyone's permission or approval. I sat there until the sky turned deep indigo, letting the peace settle into my bones. My phone buzzed at 9:14 p.m., cutting through the peace like a small, unwelcome alarm. It was my mother. I answered because I always did. That habit ran deeper than blood. It was muscle memory carved from decades of duty, of being the reliable one, the fixer, the one who never said no. "We've been talking," she said, which really meant she had been talking while my father listened and nodded along in silent agreement, the way he always had. "And we think it makes the most sense for us to come stay with you for a while. Help you get settled." She paused, as if the decision had already been made long before she dialed. "Your father says it's fine. We'll drive down tomorrow and bring some things." "Some things?" I echoed, my stomach tightening into a familiar knot. "We might stay through the summer," she continued, her voice softening in that practiced, maternal way that always made it harder to push back. "The apartment gets so unbearably hot in the summer months, and you'll have all that space now. It would be good for everyone. Fresh air, time together. Then came the line that still echoes in my quiet moments, sharp as sea glass. If you don't like it, you can always find somewhere else to be. I remember the exact texture of that sentence, how casually it landed, like it was the most reasonable, loving suggestion in the world. Somewhere else to be. In my house. The one I had spent 4 months dreaming about and 6 weeks fighting myself to claim. The down payment had come from my long season of stillness, from savings I had guarded carefully through years of quiet sacrifice. I swallowed everything I wanted to say, the frustration, the exhaustion, the years of unspoken boundaries crossed without apology. "Okay, Mom," I replied softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll see you tomorrow." I smiled, but not for her. The phone was already slipping from my ear before the call ended, the screen going dark in my hand like a curtain falling on an old act. What I didn't tell her on that call was this. 3 weeks before closing, I had sat down with a real estate attorney named Daniel Price. It wasn't paranoia or bitterness. It was pattern recognition after 34 years of watching my own space, physical, emotional, and professional, quietly become communal property the moment I stopped defending it. I had learned that painful lesson too late for most things in my life. The childhood bedroom that slowly became storage for everyone else's things, the apartment where friends stayed indefinitely and never quite left, the relationships where my needs always came last, eroded like sand under constant waves. But I could still apply it here, in this one sacred place I had chosen for myself. Daniel helped me set up a trust. Clean, legal, structurally sound. It placed clear, respectful terms around occupancy and use, protecting the home I had worked so hard to create. I almost canceled that appointment twice. It felt ungrateful, overly cautious, even cold, like I was preparing for a battle I desperately hoped would never come. The night before closing, I printed the letter and left it on the kitchen counter, face up, right beside the simple ceramic fruit bowl I had bought simply because I wanted one. A small, deliberate symbol of the life I was trying to build on my own terms. Then I went to sleep, my heart strangely steady despite the nerves fluttering in my chest. They arrived the next day at 11 a.m. My mother entered the way she entered every space, like a surveyor deciding what needed improvement, her eyes scanning walls, furniture, and layout with practiced efficiency, already imagining rearrangements. My father followed quietly, carrying a large box, saying my name once in greeting. He had always been a man who took up very little room, something I once admired as gentleness and now understood in a more complicated light, as quiet withdrawal, as years of letting things happen around him without interference. My mother found the letter while I was making coffee in the small kitchen, the aroma filling the air with false normalcy. The silence that followed had real weight, thick and heavy like the humid air before a storm. She read it once, then again, the paper rustling sharply in her hands. "What is this?" she asked, her voice low and sharp, edged with disbelief and something deeper. "It's the property documentation," I said calmly, meeting her eyes without flinching. "Daniel can answer any questions. His number is on the second page." There was no explosive scene, no shouting or dramatic tears, the kind people expect in these kinds of family stories. She said 2 things I won't repeat here, words that cut deep but no longer surprised me. I said almost nothing in return, holding my ground with a quiet strength I had practiced for years in smaller ways. My father set his box down on the floor, then picked it up again, shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot. By 12:30, they were repacking the car in the driveway, the trunk closing with a final sounding thud. I didn't stand there watching them leave. I didn't need to see the disappointment or confusion on their faces. Instead, I walked down to the water. Shoes off. The sand turned damp and cold beneath my feet, sending small shivers up my legs that grounded me. The waves were ordinary that day, gray-green, steady, indifferent to human drama. They crashed and retreated in their ancient rhythm, pulling shells, foam, and tiny pebbles along the shore in a ceaseless dance. Seagulls called overhead, circling lazily. They didn't care about what had just happened inside the house behind me. I stood there for a long time, toes buried in the wet sand, wind tugging gently at my hair and carrying the sharp, clean scent of the sea. Not victorious. Victory suggests a fight I had wanted to be in, a competition I had chosen. What I felt was quieter, deeper, more tender. Something like, "This is mine." A full breath after holding it for decades. A homecoming to myself, slow and real and long overdue. Tears mixed with the salt spray on my cheeks, but they weren't sad ones. They were release, relief, renewal. The tea was completely cold by the time I went back inside. I drank it anyway, standing at the kitchen counter, looking around at the empty rooms that now felt full of possibility instead of absence. The fruit bowls sat untouched, waiting. The letter had been taken with them. And for the first time in my life, the silence around me felt like freedom instead of loneliness. In the days that followed, I unpacked slowly, deliberately, each item a small claim on the space. I hung curtains that caught the light just right, placed books on shelves, and let the house begin to echo with my own rhythm. The ocean kept its steady company, reminding me every evening that some things, once claimed, stay yours.